into this digital room. One of them is Dr. Hiten Patel. Nice to have you here. Also Per Johansson and Hans Bolin, who you might have heard from the Fascia Guide podcast. First of all, how are you guys?
Oh, we're fine.
Fantastic. Thank you
Fantastic.
for asking.
Yes, very well. Here as well.
We brought you here, but should we start with introducing ourselves a little bit to those who haven't heard us before? Starting with you, Hiten.
Sure, thank you. First of all, great honor to be on your Fascia Guide podcast. Lively discussions, so thank you for inviting me. I'm a trained surgeon in the UK, worked around the world training people in various aspects of surgery, including keyhole surgery and robotics, and very much interested in that whole world. But beyond that, I'm interested in the patient. So your podcast fascinates me, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, and how come we ended up here? Like, why are we here?
Why are we here? That's a good
On
question.
the planet or on the call, or where do you want to begin?
Well, what's the meaning of life? Yeah. I think as a scientist, I think science becomes very hyper-focused on things. And sometimes when you step back, you see some beautiful things in the world. And I think the whole world around fascia is an interesting one, because it's like being in front of me for 30 plus years. And yet I never really thought about it properly until people like yourself piqued my interest in it. What is it? Why is it? Where is it? All those questions. And what is it for? What is it doing for us? You know, and it's amazing. I'm looking forward to the conversation with my fellow experts on this panel today.
Mm. No, we started a podcast and a discussion. It's almost 5 years ago now, actually. Me, Per, and Hans. And when we did, we started to talk about what fascia is, of course, but also why it's so hard to understand. And that conversation has now been, it's more, it came up as a topic again because we just published a new book based on the first conversations we just had. So it's interesting when you get to read your own words 5 years after and see what you were actually thinking about. And I was very surprised when you contacted me this summer to talk about your interest in what we were doing. And it's overwhelming in a sense when you have done something for 5 years and you go on with your discussions and you talk in a certain way, and then you lift your head up and look out at the world and start talking with other people, and then you realize, oh, this is an interesting type of conversation. And that's what I want to do with this live session as well, to bring this conversation, or the conversations that we have had for 5 years, into a new forum and a new audience. And it was actually your idea, because you said to us when we talked this summer that we should talk more with people from all parts of the world, basically. So here we are.
Wow.
And maybe we should get a short introduction to Per and Hans as well.
Yeah, sure. You should start, Hans, because you're, in a sense, you're the beginning of it all.
Yeah, my background is I made a device for treating fascia and or treating the body, and I started looking into Fascia Research Society in 2013, and my big question was that we got really good result, but everybody asked why could it be so quick, and why is the treatment so effective? And my background is not in medical industry or I'm more into manual therapy and been a chiropractic apprentice for a couple of years, and then I was really interested in fascia because I think the first book I read was Tom Meyer's Anatomy Trains, and I think it was an interesting way of looking at the body more from a broader perspective. and then I think I think I called you the first time 2017 maybe, Per.
Yeah,
Something like that.
something like that. Yes.
Because I wanted to understand why fascia or wholeness is so hard to understand. So the thing we started 2019 was to see how can we understand why is it hard to understand wholeness or another perspective, because fascia is around everything. So that's what we introduced you, Per, and we started the fascia guide from the perspective to see why is it hard to understand wholeness, or what do you call it?
Yeah, well, wholeness. Yes, wholeness. It's a somewhat misused term. My background, scientific background, is in a discipline called human ecology, which is about, in all kinds of senses, really the relationship between human beings and what we call nature. So it includes both us as natural beings and biological beings, and ourselves as cultural beings living in a largely artificial world and totally dependent on our artificial environment or cultural environment. So in order to get any grips on those kinds of questions at all, you have to, I would say, develop a certain intuition about how things relate to one another. And that means viewing things as always changing and moving in a kind of holistic fashion. So it's really a different kind of perspective from when you focus on the details, whether it's cell metabolism or it's exactly what this or that organism does, or ourselves for that matter. So I think thinking the real challenge is to learn to change how to change perspective from wholeness to detail, from detail to wholeness. Because if you only think in terms of wholeness in a kind of rather abstract or more philosophical sense, you sort of lose touch with what is actually happening, because the devil, as they say, is in the details. So you will have to find ways of thinking which makes it possible to switch your perspective between wholeness and whatever kind of detail you're interested or is relevant in the context of your questions. So, well, I guess I've trained myself to thinking in that way. So, and that's why you contacted me. And when you first contacted me, Hans, I may have heard the term fascia, but I didn't have any knowledge about it at all, really. And I have no specialized medical background or anything like that. So there was a rather steep learning curve at first for me, trying to understand
it has been for
how
us
the body
too.
works. But
It has been for us too.
certainly. So.
But I think that's...
And here we are. As Axel said, we've talked about this now for years. So some things are starting to clear up, even though many things are quite, I would say, unknown still to everyone, really.
But what is fascinating with this call is that we are, in front of me on my screen, there are 4 boxes, 4 people. And what's interesting with the 4 of us is that we have approached a subject with completely different backgrounds. So Hans, you have an entrepreneurial business mindset, and you came into this with a practical application aspect, because you're also a therapist treating people. So you have that, let's do something with this hands-on approach. And Per, you have this academic background and the background of human ecology and looking at things as a whole from a theoretical perspective. And I had no background whatsoever. I just came into this when I was 19 years old, extremely naive, had no idea what you were allowed to think and what questions you were allowed to ask and I've always been interested in communication and education and how people understand things. And you, Hiten, you came in to this as a medical surgeon, like a professor, someone who has been in the medical world your whole life.
And you had actually been looking at fascia all the time.
Yep.
From the inside, and we have never looked at it on the inside. We're trying to look it from the outside, from the outside. And I think it's interesting to hear from you, because you have actually working with it, and we have been working on it, or on top of it.
It's like water. We're so used to seeing water, we just take it for granted. The fascia is like that. We just take it for granted, and yet it's the most fascinating. Not just anatomical, that's the where, but also the why. Why is it there? What's it doing? The function, the physiology. Why does it have capillaries? What about the water? I read some fascinating things recently about ionized water and the fascia. So there's some incredible new, let's call it new technologies coming out, which are nothing to do with circuitry. They are natural new technologies. It's amazing, which we're going to get into, I hope.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to look at, because we have talked in our podcast, and people probably heard our discussions on why we found it challenging to understand this subject, why we have spent so many hours talking about it, because it's not only to learn the anatomical properties or how it works, it's also affecting our way of thinking, because as we said the other day, you have to look at everything. A conversation about fascia is automatically a conversation about everything, because it's affected by everything, affected by thoughts, about feelings, your way of life, your way of moving. So it's been challenging for us to understand it, but it will be interesting to hear, with your extensive knowledge, experience, education, background, how has it been for you to get into the subject or dig deeper into the subject?
Yeah. Well, when you have a very complicated, as Per said, when you have a very complicated subject, why don't we keep it very simple, right? So we can obviously talk about little cellular things in a minute, but actually some of the really simple things are about if the fascia is what we think it is, and the four of us may have a different opinion of what fascia is. In my opinion, as a young medical student, it was just a piece of tissue all over your body that was dead, because we looked at the cadavers when we were dissecting them, and it was dead tissue. But the word fascia was one of the first words I ever learned as a medical student, aged 18. So the demonstrator, the anatomist, would say, "Oh, now dissect through this fascia to reach the muscle," and they give it the name of the muscle. And then if they'd give some names for fascia, but they were very bland. Scarpus fascia is all over your body. But what no one said, and now I realize some 35, 40 years later, it's everywhere. So when something's everywhere, it's got to have some use. It can't just be everywhere for no reason, right? As I said, like water is the best analogy for me. And as you all know, the fascia's full of water, right? And but it also has different forms, isn't it? So you have a gel form or more liquid form, and within all of those structures, you have these other things, blood vessels and nerves, and lots of lovely little receptors, and a whole bunch of a milieu of amazing, wonderful things. But because it's so complicated, no one's bothered to try and work out what it was back 40, 50 years ago. And now the thing you guys have actually got off the ground, which is why I contacted you, the fascial research project, this podcast, all the work that you're doing, it's made everybody understand a complex subject more easily, right? The Padua work going on, for example. All these things caught my attention, but it still isn't good enough because it's too complicated. So I'm still trying to work out the simple thing, Axel. And that's you and I have been having those conversations. How do you simplify this? So as a surgeon, we know that if you cut the fascia, we know that if you don't bring the edges together in a very anatomical way, it will increase the risk of horrible poor cosmetic scarring. For example, so we know that somehow the fascia or the matrix, or some people call it the extracellular matrix, don't they? They call it the lattice of the body, the kind of skeleton, the microskeleton of the skeleton, right? So there are many, many different ways of describing it, but ultimately it's a living organism that responds, reacts, can manipulate a situation, can do many, many things beautifully. But also, I've recently been reading about, studying something that the NIH brought up, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but the National Institute of Health in the United States is the #1 research body in the world. They have been funding something called bioenergy fields. So they came up with a concept about bioenergy. And why I'm mentioning this is because we talk about meridians in Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. We talk about energy lines and chakras, energy centers in yoga. These are all ancient things. But I'm going to bring this together with fascia because what the bioenergy field research has been doing is they've been looking at things like Reiki and other energy treatments and showing the validity of them in peer-reviewed research. Okay, so it's not something that's just woo-woo anymore. It's actually real. The NIH are funding that research. It's happening. What I saw though was I saw a combination of what the fascial research was about and what this group are doing. And why did I mention it? Because it's the same idea and concept. You have these pathways all around your body, and let's call them neurological pathways because we know that the neurological system, the network is vast in the fascia. It's trillions of cells within the fascial pathways, or the highways, the A roads, B roads, we say in the UK. So small roads, small pathways. And because of this kind of analogy, I started looking at these things next to each other. I put one block of things for fascial research and one block for this bioenergy research. And then I looked at my own experiences of more traditional anatomical research, neuroanatomy research, and just looking at the anatomy first, and then applying the functional side, the physiology, neurophysiology, and then disease states. When things go wrong, how do you repair this system? So the most fascinating thing for me, the most amazing thing for me about the research that you guys have been doing is that I now have tools and language to apply for treatments that people are having. So Hans, you've developed this fantastic system where you're using instruments and techniques in the chiropractic world. Again, very similar to these pathways. That's how chiropractic people, it's only 100 years old, chiropractic, and yet it's using some of these fascinating things from the past. And I looked at the old literature back 80, 90 years ago, and you can see that there is evidence then of what we're talking about now in the fascial research. So we can unpick this, and please, I'll stop there. Please, let's unpick some of this from what you guys want to tell me.
Who wants to jump in first?
No, but I think it's the thing we try to do is to. I think you learn more every day about because we learn from experience, from patients, and from customers. And the thing that when we talk to Gerald Pollack, one of the things when we called him up was he thinks that the fourth phase of water or the energy is needed for healing, and I think Pollack is when you talk about the fourth phase of water and you talk about the energy that we need or that the cell is actually needing for produce new cells. That's quite fascinating because that's a perspective I hadn't thought about it in that way before I met Pollack. So when we had the meeting with Pollack, Perry, you were there. It was so interesting to see because he has been doing the other thing, not fascia, but the structure of water and the energy of the water that's needed in the body. And so I think we did an experiment. I think it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we tried to do. high doses of vitamin C, not so high doses, but 8 grams of vitamin C, and we did 2 grams of of magnesium. And I did a patient in Spain, and he has not a frozen shoulder, but the caracaxel.
I can search for the correct term in English.
Pretendis calcarera, a shoulder that's really stiff.
Yeah.
And he was going to operate it in January, and we gave him 8 grams of vitamin C.
Calcific tendinitis of the shoulder.
And 2 grams of magnesium, and we treated him with 2 people in 45 minutes, and after 45 minutes his shoulder was back in full range of motion. So, and the thing is, how can the body heal so quickly? Because that's so the healing process, what does you need? You need fluent, you need energy, and you need maybe a thing to reduce the free radicals in the body. So I think to look at healing process in the body, that was the thing that Pollack was introducing, the 4 phase of water that is needed in the body. And when you talk, Per, you made a whole program about water, and when you talk about water, people get a little bit I know what water is, but do we really know what water is? Actually, do we know what water is? And it's like you can kill a dinner by talking about water, because they get so annoyed.
Yeah, they
because
get completely flabbergasted and as you said, annoyed.
The program Per did, the program you did, it was really fascinating, because you talk about Schauberger, and what is water? And we think that we know everything about water, but I think we don't know not so much about water at all. And that's
And we're only about 70, 80, some people say 95% water. So it could be good to know something about it, but yeah.
And when you start now about what's fascia, it's liquid. So it's like when you and we have never seen fascia inside because we are outside, but it's amazing to talk with surgeons, because you're working with it all the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
No, but I think something I've looked into. Hans, I'm gonna mute you while you're not speaking, because I think the echo is from you. There's a small echo, so then you unmute yourself when you speak again. Something I looked into a lot, I talked about it yesterday because I met a lot of people. What's interesting with fascia and what we have learned throughout the years is that you can think about things from a different way, like from a different perspective. For example, we had talked to a doctor about using vitamin C as intravenous vitamin C. And then we try to combine that with treatment. And just to have that idea, because what the vitamin C does is that it goes to the places where it needs to go in the body. So simply put, it's a matter of energy actually, but looking at things as energy. And I've done it now 4 times, and sometimes I just get full of energy, like I'm like that. But yesterday when I tried it, I just felt tingling sensations in my shoulder and in my arms, because I have a 9-week-old baby at home. So I do a lot of cradling. And my shoulder blade is just very stiff from that, because and during nights I sleep on the baby sleeps on my arm. And that's also like, so that's what I need right now. I need help with my shoulder and my arm, and that's what the vitamin C did in the body, which was really interesting. But when you look at the concept of free radical and oxidative stress, and you look at the positive energy in the body and the negative antioxidants that's coming there, it's a matter of energy and where the energy goes, and that's just a different way of looking at treating the body. And I think for us, fascia has opened up. You're allowed to think of it like this instead of like this, and that opens up for new ways of looking at treatment or new ways of understanding things. And you can look at things like, if you look at the principle of flow, or how things are flowing in the body, and then you stimulate flow, and that stimulates healing. So then you can build a treatment method or a movement pattern or a way of looking at your life as I should increase my flow, and that means I would feel more alive. And then you're talking about different things than how the hyaluronic acid molecules are affected by pressure and environment in the system, or hormones, or what's happening in the body, but instead look at how it feels to use it. So I think fascia has opened up a new approach at looking at health.
Just two points that you've just made. One about the vitamin C. I mean, you were aware that the original high dose of vitamin C was performed by Linus Pauling, and he's one of the guys who won 2 Nobel Prizes. And it was for cancer treatments, right? So that's what we originally studied in the early 90s, some of that work. And now it's had a resurrection, which I love. So the fact that you're talking about vitamin C is amazing. And the second point was about energy. So basically, families of cells which affect your body. So the mitochondria are the most over understood yet under understood cell in the body. And some of the latest work coming out about mitochondria and what we're talking about is that there are families of mitochondria in different parts of your body, and they behave like a community, a social community. So when they're not all together working as one, pulling in one direction, that's when you can have, for example, brain health. Out of Columbia University, you can have depression. If you have a problem with lack of coalescence of mitochondrial function in the heart, you can have congestive cardiac failure. So like that, they have mitochondria behave slightly differently in different parts of the body, but they work as families. But vitamin C high dose can actually influence mitochondrial function. So to Hans's patient with the shoulder, quick recovery, your mitochondria can actually respond quite quickly. And so that's one of the things, but not just producing more mitochondria and each mitochondria producing more energy, but when they work together in symbiotic, in a or synergistic nature, that can be very powerful. And that's something that's being studied now. But we're talking about fascia. And so my personal feeling about fascia is it's like a conduit, it's like a network which allows things to go up and down. So whether it's the water we talked about earlier, or whether it's some kind of vitamin C or some other supplement or micronutrient, it's able to take it to the places that it's required. And that network is a way of getting there quickly. And you asked me as a surgeon, what did I see? So when you're in joints, you know, where we feel the aches and pains and tingles and all that sort of stuff, you don't see an obvious conduit to get things to the joint. So surgeons take a needle and inject the joint directly with steroid, okay, because they can't see an obvious pathway if you take a tablet for it to get to the joint. But it does, doesn't it? You take paracetamol, you take ibuprofen, eventually it reaches the place where the pain is, but it takes some time to reach there. And so if we were to, I think I've seen the most powerful work done for fascia in the chiropractic world, in the joints, in the muscle injuries in athletes, etc. And I now know a group that are working with the water we talked about, so the ionized water, or the fourth, Hans, you called it fourth, I can't remember what you said.
Fourth phase of water.
Fourth phase of water, yeah.
Fourth phase, yeah.
Or the easy water, yeah.
Easy water, that's right. So the more powerful form of it. But there are now Olympic athletes, and forget Olympic athletes, there are regular people like us using these techniques now to improve or decrease risk of injury, but also decrease our pain, speed up healing. Just regular sport. We all play some kind of sport, I'm sure. Just regular, simple people doing simple things. But when you say an Olympic athletes using it in a daily protocol, fascial maneuvers or fascial exercises with the water, with the vitamin C, then all four of us can agree on one thing. There's not a one unilateral treatment. It requires all aspects to make this work. And that's why the bioenergy world, you know, NIH work, you know, the modern fascial research things that you guys are doing, I think it all has a bearing. And Axel, to answer your question, that's why I contacted you, because I think there's an opportunity to bring everybody together to do this.
I found myself talking about the fascia in terms of calling it the wholeness organ of the body. And I wonder, would there be any basis for saying that fascia actually contributes very centrally to coordinating all kinds of processes in the body? Apart, the nervous system and other systems also coordinate, of course, but does the fascia have its own wholeness coordinating function? Would it be possible to say that, do you think?
Well, yes, that's a brilliant point you've made. There's a great analogy, though, at the cellular level. When you have epithelial cells, these are the cells that line your gut, top of your skin, etc., as you know. But just for our audience, you have epithelial cells which perform all the functions for your body, but underneath them, or around them, surrounding them, you have a mesenchymal layer. You have a bunch of cells which don't look like they're doing very much, or the extracellular matrix. They actually coordinate the function of the epithelium. So they're actually the brain of the cell. They're actually the things that coordinate what happens. If you can imagine one cell doing that with a little area around it, which is well proven in science, you can imagine the fascia could be that same mesenchymal outer layer which coordinates function paired to what you're saying for the whole body. And that makes sense because the mesenchyme has a blood supply. Why would cells which look dormant require oxygen, require nutrients? There's got to be a reason. The fascia is full of capillaries. There's lots of little blood vessels all over the fascia. So it's alive. And if it's alive, it's drawing energy from your body to survive, it must have a very important function if it's all over your entire body. We'll agree on that, right?
Yes.
Can I say something which might make you laugh?
Yes, of course.
When you said wholeness, I was laughing inside because I often use the word whole without a W, which means a great big hole, like empty, as opposed to whole, which is with the W, which is, something solid. And often we use the word holistic, which is being used terribly now. It's used in a very terrible way, I think. It's been overused in social media. So I often would write, do you mean holistic with a W? Without a W. For me, holistic is with a W.
Yeah, I like that.
For me too, absolutely.
Yeah. So Per, I'm a fan of your words. Big fan of your words.
Okay, thank you.
What did very well? That's what did you call the fascia? The skin of the soul.
No, it's Swedström. The skin of the soul.
The skin of the soul.
There is a New Zealand writer called Sue Adström, and she has written the book The Living Wetsuit. It's really interesting because it's so it's a simple way to explain what this is.
We lost you, Axel. We can't hear you.
Did I accidentally press my mute button again?
Do you have to fill in the blanks, Axel? So you mute and we carry on talking. Yeah?
No, I said Sue Adström is a writer from New Zealand, and we had her as a guest on one of the podcast episodes, and she talked about fascia as the skin of the soul, and that's a good metaphor. She's also talked about reading, I think it was 12 different base courses in anatomy, and realizing that there was a different definition of the anatomy or a different way of looking at anatomy in all medical courses she took. So there's no cohesion, there's no everyone had a different metaphor, different languages, different ways of looking at things. And I want to bring in a question we also got from one of the viewers, Sosen08. She loves learning more about fascia and mitochondria. And what's interesting is because we did an episode in Swedish way back about mitochondrial dysfunction. And what's this is a condition where the mitochondria in the body doesn't produce energy at the same level as they should be producing energy, which means that your overall fatigue levels you're tired, and when you're tired, you don't deal with things. The body doesn't deal with things as it should be. Like the immune system goes down, the cell reproduction goes down. Imagine like your energy level should be 100, but they're always on 30. And what's interesting with that condition is that it affects the whole body at the same time. And we talked about vitamin C with the doctor who enabled us to get that intravenous treatment. And she has a theory from working with intravenous vitamin C for a couple of years now, that most people, at least in Sweden, have low vitamin C level, like chronically low vitamin C levels. And one of the main reasons being stress. And that made us look at what you actually say that vitamin C is doing in terms of normal function of the immune system, that you should have psychological well-being, or avoid fatigue, or cell reproduction or tissue regeneration. That's vitamin C takes part of that. And if you turn it around and say, like, what if everyone has low vitamin C level? Then that means most people will be a bit tired, a bit irritated, stressed. Their immune system will be down. Their tissue regeneration ability, their self-healing ability will be down a little bit. And then I talked to the best source you can get to understand how people are, my hairdresser. That's such a good, like, if you want to feel the pulse of people, ask your hairdresser.
I'm so jealous because I have no hairdresser because I've got no hair. So I would love to.
You're missing something. No, I've had the same hairdresser for, like, I think it's 5 or 6 years, or 8 years. And he talks a lot, and he talks a lot of different people. So I asked him, do you feel, is there a difference between people now and, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago? And yeah, people are more stressed. People are more tired. People are more annoyed. People are more into their own bubbles. People want to just get home from work, put on a Netflix show, and just die in their couch, basically. And what's interesting when looking at the wholeness with a W is that you can look at this trends of lifestyle, stress levels, mitochondrial dysfunction, vitamin C levels, how is the fluid flow going on, how are we feeling as a society. And I think that's an interesting way to understand this research, not like what is happening inside of this cell or this part of the body, but what is happening to us how do you connect physiology with society, basically. And so that I wanted to throw that out there and see what you think about it.
There are you've said a lot of things there, so let's just unpick that. So firstly, I think it's a bit dangerous to just say one intervention does everything, and yes. I think it's more complicated. Vitamin C metabolism is far more complicated than we can ever imagine. Hence, Pauling won his Nobel Prize for it, a long time ago now, 70 odd years ago, and it's resurrected because it has some end organ effects, right? So we're not sure how it does it, but you give someone high dose IV intervention and they seem better, they feel better, they're less depressed, they're more upbeat, they're less pain. So that's fine. That's a very qualitative way of looking at something like that. But I want to just uncouple this thing about mitochondrial dysfunction. It's a very, very important subject, and it's poorly understood, but it's gaining great traction amongst the top centers in the world for science. So if I just say to you one thing, first of all, the word dysfunction is misleading, because there are people who have mitochondrial function, normal function, which is just low. That's normal. And they have, when they need it, they have very high function. So they can up and ebb and flow. So that's a normal mitochondrial physiology. If you have diseased mitochondria, there's a number of things that can happen. The first thing is you can get individual mitochondria not working as groups. So they don't coalesce properly, like I told you earlier. So, for example, Columbia University, Dr. Pickard, working in the brain science unit, they've published plenty of work on this showing that meditation, okay, and I'm going to go there, meditation, any form of meditation, you don't have to have some guru, go to India, nothing like that. You can just sit quietly, calm your mind down, and just do basic meditation. That will improve your coalescence of mitochondria. So not increasing its function, right? Just bringing the family of mitochondria together in the brain, okay? Coalescence. If you want to upregulate the power of your mitochondria, meditate more, is what they're saying. And not just him, Professor Hemel Patel, my namesake from San Diego, UCSD, they've published a lot on this. So there's plenty of science to say simple interventions using your meditative brain are enough for mitochondrial function. However, you know what the world is like. No, everybody's in a rush. Everybody wants to have everything done so fast. We want it done yesterday, right? So that's when interventions like IV citrate, so vitamin C, for example, magnesium, as Hans had said, and all these are these sort of cocktails of supplementation which people take. If you want a quick fix, have it IV. If you want a more moderate fix, slowly over a period of time, then you might go to an expert. By the way, to all the viewers, go to an expert for these things. Don't go to people who are just going to give you the one thing. Go to people who can talk to you properly about this. But you can have it in different ways. So nutritional therapists, functional medicine people, you know, all those sort of people who understand supplementation, they're good to go to for these things. But the biggest and simplest thing to do, I think, which I've seen from all the literature and all the things I've read about and studied in the last 20 odd years, we're all dehydrated. Okay? And we know the fascia is one of the biggest conduits for water movement in your body. Okay? So as Hans joked about, oh, we all understand water. We don't. Fourth phase water in your fascia is one of the most powerful things to improve your general health. Okay? Your general peripheral health, which is your limbs and your arms and legs, neck, back, that sort of thing. But now we're seeing information about organ health from this, and it upregulates and improves the coalescence of your mitochondrial function also. So drinking with intent, drinking the right things, you know, no one's ever talked about if you drink the same equivalent amount of alcohol, what happens to your fascia. So first of all, alcohol scientifically dehydrates your body. We know that because it's a diuretic. So your kidneys switch on, they clear more fluid than you actually should be clearing. So you become dehydrated. Where does that fluid eventually come from? Well, your intravascular volume, where your heart pumps blood around your body, has to be fixed. So it can't go low. So what happens? The rest of your body gets dried out. Your liver, your spleen, your other organs like your skin, they all become dehydrated. Imagine if we could help people can keep their hydration levels at a good rate. So firstly, you know, low alcohol levels, high hydration, have the fourth phase water as well. That's going to help you more. Why isn't it? Well, there's no side effects to taking it. And there's plenty of evidence now to say it has a positive effect in your body. So no side effects, positive effect in your body. Why wouldn't you take something like that? And by the way, just so you all know, I have no financial interest in any water companies. Just so you know, I'm just talking about the quality of the science available. So if you just drink regular water out your tap, that's better than not drinking. I would say that. If you meditate and instead of not meditating, that's better. So those two things are free, simple things to do, and they begin the process. So I just wanted to say that. I know we're talking about really intricate stuff, but the basics are still the basic. They're still good for you.
And that was actually Hans. Okay, Hans, you go.
I met with a Swedish scientist who was working on she's really famous in outside Sweden. Her name is Ingegerd Rosborg, and she has been studying the quality of water. And it's important that water has some type of quality and are with some minerals or some type of minerals. And some water, she actually said it was quite dangerous to drink, because if you have water without minerals, it's actually not good for the body. Um, and but she said the same as you said. It's really important to drink a lot of water. And she started a study from the, I know you don't remember it, Axel, but me and Parrot, when we had the sour rain in Europe, that we had to
Acid rain, you mean?
acid rain in Europe. And
Yeah.
so she started to look at what kind of water do we have, and what kind of drinking water do we have. And in Sweden we have 2 spots in Sweden with really good water. That's Gotland and then the southern part of Sweden, because they have lots of minerals, and we have some quite bad water in Sweden too, but not really bad. But the quality of water is really important, and that's not to drink a lot of good for your body, and to drink good water is also good for your body, and that's a thing that's not so many people talk about that either. The importance of water.
But that's something. But that's something that we looked into a lot throughout the years. Like the summary of our many hours doing podcasts and talking about fascia was that the basics are actually quite important. Like it's important what you eat. You become what you eat. We become what we do. We become what we think. We become the environment we're in. Like these small things are affecting it. So we actually like made a whole course about the importance of breathing, the importance of moving, the importance of sleeping, avoiding stress, listening to your body, having the right nutrition. So it's, I think we tend to overcomplicate things, but then if you look at what you said about meditation, for example, and there's an interview on the Fascia Guide YouTube channel with Jara Pollack, and it's really explains the 4th phase of water, the easy water, in a simple way. So if someone is new to the subject, I suggest to go and look at that one. But simply put, when the water is in the right state in the 4th phase, the exclusion zone phase, it cleans itself. So it starts the cleaning process, which gets rid of things that shouldn't be there because of the charge of that water. So the more easy water you have, the more the body cleans itself, and it gets rid of unwanted particles. It helps the immune system. So the better water you have in your body, the better you feel. The interesting thing with that is that one way to get that water is by breathing, by deep breathing. And if you look at how you looked into a lot of wisdom traditions from different cultures, breathing is always a thing.
Yes, it's always basic.
And what the breathing actually does in the body is that it increases the negative ions in the body, and it's what you call earthing or grounding, and it helps the healing process. So if you really want to be better in your body, just breathe a lot, and it's so simple in a sense that you just have to breathe, and then you should move. Take walks, run if you want to, but just move your body. So breathing, moving, and another underestimated thing is doing things that makes you feel alive, which could be cinema, or it could be parties, or it could be watching sports, or it could be listening to music, or it could be being with friends, or it could be anything that makes you feel alive will also energize this water, which will also start the healing process in your body. And because someone in the comments asked, what are the things that you can do at home to help with myofascial pain, or to help with your treatment? And it's not as simple to say breathing, moving, but breathing, moving, sleeping are really powerful tools to feel better, right?
Well,
100%. 100%. By the way, as the only Indian on this podcast, I will say the breathing is actually pranayam, which is a yoga breathing technique, which is not, they make it very complicated because there's different types of techniques that will help with different things. But there's a general technique where you just breathe, okay? And I've got so fed up with all the different words. I just tell people to breathe. Take a big breath in, breathe in for 3, breathe out for 2, breathe in for, just do a cycle that's 5 seconds basically. So 5 seconds means every minute. If you breathe every 5 seconds, you can work out that's 12 breaths you're taking per minute, and that's actually a wonderful way of, as you said, Axel, just doing things in the day. We're not thinking about it, but it's helping you. So pranayam.
When we met I met a Chinese doctor when we did the movie, and I think you mentioned for Axel and Per about fascia. Maybe I think Neil T says that the fascia maybe can be a way to connect all the different sides of looking at the human body, like
Eastern medicine, Western
Eastern
medicine. Yeah.
And because when I talked to this doctor in Qigong, because I treated her for a little bit, and she was quite into the meridians, and I was in many meridians that she was, and she was like, so it was interesting to talk to her about that fascia could actually be a way of connecting lots of experience and traditions and way of looking at the body, maybe in a sense, in a other way of connecting things, East Western medicine. What do you think? Because you have been in both sides, or?
Yeah, that is the main driver for me personally, is to bring all this knowledge, somehow bring it in one language. And I don't mean English, Swedish, I mean one common holistic language where we can all just use the same words. So I'm doing some work at the moment with a group called Human Garage, they teach fascial maneuvers, the exercises that stretch your fascia, right? And that people don't understand it so well because they are looking for some comparison to something else, you see. Oh, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing Pilates, I'm doing Reiki, I'm doing Chinese medicine, I'm doing Taoist movements, I'm doing whatever. And I keep seeing the same things in every single training process. It's the same. You're all working on the same things. You've got one human body. We've all got a brain. We've all got one amygdala in the middle. We've all got, anatomically we're the same human beings. Although conspiracy theorists will say we're not all the same, but let's not go there. This is not for today. Area 52. No, we won't bother with that. We're all the same anatomy, same physiology. We have the same ailments. We have the same diseases. We have the same treatments. We have the same recoveries, etc., etc. So if we're the same, ancient wisdom and modern wisdom can combine to give you a very nice system. And I personally think fascia is one of the ways to talk to people, to give them some kind of framework, literally a framework, because it is a framework, to work out what's going wrong and how do you fix it. Because we only care about these things when things go wrong in our health. Nobody cares, not nobody, most people don't think about their health really until it goes wrong. And then it's like, oh, what's this fascia stuff? Let me look at it. What's this yoga stuff? What's this food we should eat? What's this vitamin C business? It's normal for human beings. As a doctor seeing patients, I saw all of this. But I love seeing my patients because there's ways to help people because they can help themselves. I think it's self-help. So understanding your fascia, I believe, is a way of, there's not enough doctors for all patients. There's not enough chiropractors for all patients, not enough physios for all patients. So if there are 9 billion people and not enough people to look after us, what do? We've got to look for some self-help. And I think the work that your group are doing and groups like yours are going to allow people to self-help. They're going to ask their own questions about, hey, I've got a pain in my elbow. What's that? Like Axel, you said you're holding your baby and you worked out why the problem was there. But you know that because you work in this field. So we want to help people who don't work in the field, with this type of language, common language we're using. So that's why I think fascia is a great thing as a framework for what we want to help people help themselves.
What I found in Sweden is, compared to many other Western countries as well, an extremely, what I would call, scientific country, with an almost religious belief in science with a capital S. And if you speak too much in terms far from the scientific paradigm, so to speak, very many people who themselves know nothing about science, that's not the point, sort of, no, that can't be true. What I found with fascia is that you can say that fascia is a scientifically recognized subject of study, and recent fascia research has showed that in order to understand the role of fascia, the functional role of fascia in the body, you will have to learn to think more in terms of wholeness than in just the molecular details of cell metabolism. So just saying that opens up a space of conversation for many people, and it's almost magical. So you cannot underestimate the rhetorical importance of speaking in terms of fascia, because you can very rapidly go from fascia as a more or less medical, biological subject to all kinds of things. That's what we have found in our work, in our popular work. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, that just and it's better to base your arguments or your way of thinking on fascia than on, say, quantum mechanics or something, which is ridiculously popular in some wholeness circles, who certainly do not understand anything of quantum mechanics.
Oh, Per, you've gone there now. We're going to have to go into quantum biology now, right?
Yeah,
We'll say that for another episode.
That's a very different, somewhat different.
No, but I think it's something, because I had dinner with my brother yesterday, and he works with us, and we talked about conversation in general, or communication in general, because he had a friend of his saying, you are the only one I can talk with about everything with. And we were like, oh yeah, people don't talk about everything with everyone, because we're so used of talking about everything with like, people talk to me about everything. And there is I think with fascia you're allowed to talk about everything. And it's so, on a personal level, I've always tried to make people feel comfortable with being with me, so they can feel that they can talk about everything. And then you have to listen. You can't be judgmental. You need to respect the people saying what they're saying. But if you talk about the body in the same way, well, then there is nothing. It's allowing you to talk about things, because some people, or my experience is that people, they're interested in relating their thoughts and their feeling to their body, because they haven't been able to talk about how their way of living, or their ideas, or their past experience, how that has affected them physically. So yesterday there was this guy who had he was so surprised when he had a massage treatment, and when treating that massage thing, his feelings of anxiety was released, and he was so surprised by it. And then I said, well, according to Pollack's theories, it's actually your memories are actually stored in water in your body, which could actually be like a physical blockage in that area. And he was like, oh, and that, for him, he was then allowed to take that experience seriously. He was allowed to not just say, it was just my anxiety, letting go. He could actually connect his feeling to something more concrete and real. And I think that's interesting with this subject, is that it's very concrete, it's very hands-on, it's very um, it relates to your everyday life in a sense. It's relatable to talk about fascia.
I was going to the elevator up, and then on the floor upstairs to our clinic is a psychic clinic for grown-ups. And I said to one of the guys, maybe we can send them down to us, and we treat the body first, and then you can talk with them. So he was laughing. I've just moved in, but I will come down with friends of mine. We come down and look what you're doing. Because that's another way of fascia. You can connect everything and all aspects of the body and the life connected with the fascia, because it's everything.
That's Axel, you know what you just said is brilliant. It's your body's the sensor of our 3D life that we live in. So it feels everything about your every day, your night, your every emotion goes through your body. You feel it in your body. We literally say, I'm feeling this pain, I'm feeling this happiness. And so people say all the time, and all you're doing is just directing them to say, hey, what you're feeling, where you're feeling it, where you can feel it in this thing called the fascia. And this is what the fascia is about. I like that. So you're kind of giving it credibility. It's good.
It's actually located in this part of your body. I think that makes it concrete. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So, like I said, you remember at the beginning, let's keep simplify a complex subject. And that's you can't get any, the common denominator is what you just said. I mean, it's perfect.
Like,
thank you for saying it. Thank you.
Yeah. And for me, like the final thing is, because when we started with this, Hans, I was not that interested. Like I was seeing this as something I would do for a couple of years until I found my real true calling. But during the years, I realized that the body, or actually me, like myself, my own function, my own being, is perhaps the most interesting subject there is. And I was so fascinated because biology for me was so boring. It was one of my I loved school. Like I found a way to find something interesting in every subject I took. But biology was hard. Like it was so boring in school. and now it's like it's what I'm working with. Like it's my main subject is biology in a sense. And the more I learn about the body, the more I learn about fascia, the more I learn about how things function, the more interested I am. And I think, can we make this everyone's, well, not maybe everyone's favorite subject, but like second favorite subject, because it's so fascinating when you start to realize how things are working. And you look at, for example, I'm right now fascinated about interoception, where you have a nervous system that's made to feel what your organs are actually doing. So you have a sensory organs in your body actually enabling you to feel what's going on, and you can train this function. You can become better and better and better at feeling what's going on inside your stomach or in your lungs or in your diaphragm or what's happening in your body. And just imagine the possibility to start learning to actually listen to your body. Because the other thing we found is that the body is so wise. You can get so many answers to understand things by just listening to the signals you get from your own body. There is wisdom in everyone, like physical wisdom in everyone, and that's really fascinating, I think.
Well, that was good last words for today, I think.
You think? Okay. I would love to continue this conversation with you some other time, if you would like to join us again. I feel there's a lot more subjects we need to get into. What was it? Quantum mechanics, bioengineering? No. There are more things we need to talk about.
You're talking to Per or me?
I'm talking to you. Me and Per were
Oh,
talking.
okay. I was going to say, well, just if I may say, it's been a real honor to join the three of you on a pretty amazing, epic journey you've been on already to get to where you are. And thank you for allowing me to share in that. And yeah, I'm happy to join you, talk about anything. I'm one of those people that talks to everybody about everything. I'm not holding back. So I'm an outlier, yeah? Like that mitochondria, you know, I'm the outlier. I'm over here somewhere. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's been wonderful.
Okay.
Well, we will be live every week, and or not every week. Next, it will be Christmas break, but next week we will be live again. And you can also listen to the Fascia podcast. You can visit the Fascia website and look into Fascia Research Database. And if you have any questions or topics you want to discuss, if you have more guests you want us to talk to, just email live@fasciaguide.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and wish you a pleasant night, evening. Are we cancelled now?